Sergeant and Mrs. Smith, you're going to love this house.
Is that a tub in the kitchen?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by the Weather Channel. What does the Weather Channel app share in common with a personal trainer and a life coach? It's an ally on your quest to wellness. What you do with its insight is up to you. Like running an extra mile when air quality is good, or checking your allergy forecast so not even ragweed can disrupt your chi. It's more than a weather app. What in the weather are you waiting for? Be a force of nature with the Weather Channel app.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to talk about how the real compatibility is finding somebody who thinks that the relationship is as important as you do. And securely attached people that grew up in happy homes, they know this stuff instinctively, and the rest of us don't. So we have to kind of think about it and piece it together in a way that we can better understand, you know? And before I get to that, please do subscribe. My most recent subscriber episode was her lack of desire isn't usually about you, but sometimes it is. And how you could figure out when it is and when it isn't. And so I thought that a lot of you would appreciate the distinction between the many times where her lack of desire is biologically based and has to do with just general, you know, things fading, time, etc. But there are other reasons, of course. Okay, so moving on. A lot of times people talk about compatibility in terms of, like, do we like to do the same things? Do we both like to be physically fit? Do we like to travel? You know, do we have similar hobbies? Do we want children? Those are great, you know, but you're never going to get somebody where you have all the same hobbies and you have all the same interests. I mean, that would be a clone. You can't get a clone, right? And you wouldn't probably want a clone. And maybe some of you would want a clone, but either way, you can't make a clone yet. But the point being, that's not what I've seen in my practice, and I've been in practice for a long time now. And what I see is the major compatibility is, do you prioritize the relationship or not? You know, there's all these women, for example, with men that never really wanted to get married. Avoidant men that maybe, you know, they wanted to get married in theory, but they didn't really want to change their lives. This is what I call the we do what we want marriage, right? So the guy wants to do his hobbies, he wants to do his career, he wants to do, you know, friends, whatever he does. And then, yeah, it would be nice if he got married and had kids like everybody else. He doesn't want to be some kind of weirdo, you know, but in reality, he does not view the relationship as something that would be a focus. And this would be super obvious, and was probably super obvious to the securely attached women that this guy tried and failed to date, who were basically like, there's no there, and I can't really connect to this guy because he's not very, you know, communicative, demonstrative, emotional, etc. But the preoccupied attachment woman comes in there, you know, like this is like my podcast, The Delusion That You Can Change an Avoidant Man. And she's like, oh, it must be me. You know, I always thought it was me. I have so many self-esteem issues. I suck so much. So probably if I just fix myself, then magically he's going to want to commit to me. So what securely attached people know is that the person has to like marriage. They have to like relationships. And then within that, they can like you, you know. But if you have this idea, you know, that everything is kind of special and overly based on you, you know, and him, or you and her, and guys do this too. There's guys who marry women that don't even seem to want to marry them. They mostly talk about the future in terms of having kids or their career, but they never really say anything about going away as a couple or making sure that the couple has time together. They don't give a shit, right? And a guy who is securely attached would notice that, would be like, this doesn't seem really like me. You know, I'm a romantic guy. I've always wanted to be close, and this person isn't ever mentioning stuff like that, you know? Next, you know, not a good fit. Next. And of course, if you're anxious and you have low self-esteem, preoccupied attachment, your upbringing taught you that maybe there's a lot of problems with you and you never saw a functional relationship between your parents, well, then you're going to be like, oh, it's me. If I try harder, then I can get this person to like not only me, but relationships in like a way that they don't. And it's funny because people condescend to franchises like The Bachelor and stuff. But The Bachelor is great. Yeah, I haven't watched it in many years. I used to watch it all the time. I used to blog it on the Huffington Post. But the thing with The Bachelor is that, and the reason that they've had some marriages and babies and stuff, is everybody wants to be married that goes on The Bachelor. That's what they mean when they say this stupid thing, are you here for the right reasons? At this point, you get so famous, from doing it that who knows who's there for the, quote, right reasons, which is supposed to be to fall in love and get married, right? But, and have children and whatever. They've not yet had a child-free bachelorette or bachelor, but I bet that's coming. Like somebody who doesn't want kids. So far, it's all been people who want traditional families, to my knowledge. And point being that these people are generally securely attached. You could tell because they have these happy families and everybody's willing to put their family on display. They know if you go on The Bachelor, especially if you are the Bachelor or the Bachelorette, they're going to be talking to your family and going to your house, and your house got to look pretty normal. Your parents have to be nice. They have to be people who would talk about feelings, people who are kind of willing to do this crazy thing of The Bachelor because they love you. And, it's got to be kind of a healthy, functional home. I mean, nobody's going to publicize, as you know, if you got a dysfunctional family of origin, you don't want them on TV. Hell no, So point is that, so these people come, they're securely attached. And the reason you could tell they're securely attached is they like the idea that they're meeting somebody else who wants a relationship. They're into that idea. Whereas the people who are preoccupied or fearful avoidant or even avoidant, they don't ever think about that as like a category that has to supersede the relationship. They think that it's just between two people. They like to think this because they know on some level, even the avoidant people know on some level that their family was fucked up, right? And so all the insecurely attached people, they love the idea, especially when they're young, that they're totally different from their family and they are totally their own animal and there's no correlation between how their family raised them and now how they're going to be. So what they do is they try to say everything is just about me and about maybe me and the person that I meet. And then we'll be like in a special relationship that's totally different than anything that I saw, thank God, because what I saw wasn't great. And so they overstate the importance of, like this love feeling, which of course everybody has the dopamine rush of the honeymoon stage, as I've taught you guys. And they say, oh, we're in this honeymoon stage. My dour, terrible parents were never in that, I'm sure. And so therefore this is totally different. And this is a secure basis for a relationship, irrespective of the fact that, I myself as an avoidant person, I'm saying hypothetically, or I as a preoccupied person, I've never really had any skills at having a good relationship. I'm sure that this honeymoon stage will continue forever magically because now I found the right person. But you never think, do we have the same ideas of like a family, of a life together? Because frequently when we go back in marital counseling, we talk about this earliest stage. They say, well, he never really wanted to get married. I was always pushing for the next step, for living together, for marriage, for kids. Or he says, she refused my proposal, and just said she wasn't even ready and wanted to keep dating. She seemed ambivalent. She didn't really date. She didn't even know if she was somebody who wanted kids, even though now we have kids. And basically, I was pushing on everything. And then they always have problems because they never thought compatibility. It's like sexual orientation. Like you wouldn't want to convince somebody to be straight or gay for you because you're straight or gay. Most people. Although some people, honestly, if they really are very preoccupied or fearful avoidant, they will try. They will say, you know what, you were a lesbian before, but now you're going to be straight with me. And, that's not a good bet. It's really not a good bet. And so if you don't understand because you were never taught by your parents, oh, look for somebody else who wants a family, look for somebody else who's going to be a loving partner. And also if you're extremely jealous, because a lot of preoccupied people, they're very jealous. So they, in fact, do the wrong thing so wrong. They look for people who have never had a functional relationship because they feel they wouldn't be able to tolerate the jealousy of knowing that possibly a previous relationship was in some way better for their partner than their current relationship. Maybe the girl was hotter, maybe the guy was more romantic, maybe he had a bigger dick, whatever, So they, in fact, subconsciously, preoccupied attachment people often subconsciously look for somebody without experience. And you could see this with these young guys on the internet that are obsessed with body count. They're so insecure, right? So the only way that they could think that it could possibly be a sustainable relationship is if the woman never saw a penis before, because otherwise, God forbid, she could compare them negatively to a previous partner. And I have a podcast that says a woman can compare you to previous partners even if she hasn't had any, because she'll just compare you to guys on TV or her sister's husband or, the guy down the street or in her, who she thinks about as a good boyfriend or whatever. But the point is, the more insecure you are, the less comparison points you want. So then ironically, you do exactly the wrong thing and you get somebody who was never in a good relationship, probably because they don't like relationships and they're not good at them. And then you kind of coerce them implicitly, emotionally into a relationship with you. Oh, come on, please. If we get married, then everything will be better. Then you could go on as many work trips and friend trips and everything as you want because I'll know that we're married and that'll be different for me. And meanwhile, you don't realize that you're trying to convince somebody to want to be with you that doesn't want to be with you. And then you're like saying, oh, guess what? You won't even have to be with me very much. But as you get older and you get more secure and confident, you start looking around you. You're like, wait, why am I offering that deal? That's a bad deal for me. I do want somebody who wants to be with me. And instead, the only way I got to be with this person is by saying you could do your own thing all the time. So it's almost like a sham marriage in a sense, You're saying, be in this relationship with me. Don't worry, I won't make it too much of a relationship. So you could still almost not be in a relationship. You have to be sexually faithful, but that's about it. And there'd be no other constraints on you. And in return, I basically get a figurehead as a spouse. So I could say to people that I'm married, so therefore I'm normal, and that is truly what's at root of some of this when you do it, when you're young, right? Then you get older and you're like, wait a second, other people seem to have spouses. I want to hang out with them, And so if you are looking back at your relationship and you recognize some of this, well, it would be good to talk about, in couples counseling and stuff, because sometimes the avoidant partner will be like, wow, like I see why you're upset, honestly, if they don't want to get divorced. They'll be like, I really see why you're upset. And when I was younger, I didn't really want to be in a relationship, but now I do. And so I guess I got to learn how to be in a relationship, and I do want to stay married. And I see why it started out on a bad note. And I see that I wasn't good at relationships, and neither were you, And I see where we got to how we are, but now I want to change it and maybe grow together in some way. But if you're single, you could also take who's primarily, I guess, what I would be talking to is people dating after divorce, etc. And my few younger people that listen that are dating for the first time, without divorce and kids, etc. Then look for somebody who wants a relationship. Like on The Bachelor, like everybody wants a relationship. And that's not considered a bad thing. Literally, you're there because you want a relationship. And so you're picking somebody that, knowing you want a relationship, you're picking out of the sample of people who are around, which is what everybody does when they're dating. Whether it's the people on the dating app in your area or it's the people that you meet in college or whatever your sample is. If you want a relationship, that's primary. And so you got to be the same on that variable, somebody who wants a relationship. And you got to think, how much time do we want to spend together? How important is the relationship? Because if somebody wants to date you, but they never want to spend time with you, and you picture a relationship as spending a lot of time together, well, then it's not going to work out. They do not want a relationship defined as you want a relationship, and you're always going to be unhappy. So this is like a big wake-up call. The more that somebody's into being in a happy relationship, and the more happy relationships they've had, honestly, the better. Because there's also research that shows that people who are happily married remarry quicker after being widowed. That isn't because they don't love their late spouse. Of course they love their late spouse. They just love marriage. They love marriage, and that made it a good marriage the first time, and it'll make it a good marriage the second time. And they'll hopefully marry somebody else that also had many, or at least some, previous good relationships. And this even starts very early. So let's say that you're a very insecure girl, you're like 25. So then if you meet a guy who's 25 also and he's never had a serious girlfriend, then if as an insecure girl, you might be like, oh, great, I get to be the only girl he said I love you to. That means I'm special. But in reality, had you been raised in a more functional home, you would say, red flag, he's 25. He's never said I love you to anybody, never had a high school girlfriend, never had a college girlfriend. Does he really want to be in a relationship now? You know, like if he's not had anything for like even something for 6 months, you know, if it's only been casual hookups, why? Are we really at the same place? Is he ready for this relationship now? Is he like, why? You know, even at 25, why did he never have anything before? Because usually the women in that situation had like 5 boyfriends before because they are on the other side. They always need to have a boyfriend because they're so insecure. So this can really make you think and open up some avenue of understanding why your relationship may or may not be working, as well as help you with the dating on the dating market if you're on it. Do we have the same priorities about time to spend together in a relationship or not? You know, and then how can we discuss things so that nobody's blamed and we see that these problems really originated very early. Neither of us saw them as red flags, and now we're going to have to work on them directly to come to something where we both feel understood. And this understanding is an end to itself, you know, because then some people who are very anxious are like, and then what? Then how many hours a week do you spend together? How do you decide? And it's like, listen, that's very variable, you know, based on any couple. But understanding each other differently and the lens through which your partner views the world is an end to itself. That helps a lot of marriages calm down and stop with the antagonism and taking things personally, because you really just kind of get them. It's like radical empathy. You understand them at a deep level. You could decide whether or not the relationship's for you. You could decide to work on the relationship. But either way, it diffuses a lot of the tension and anxiety when you can finally see your partner's perspective and how it originated and where it started and what you noticed and didn't notice, etc. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I do hope you all buy my book on Amazon, Couples You Meet in Counseling, 7 Common Relationship Dynamics That Sabotage Closeness. And if you do, please write me a review, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Have a great day, guys.